Wait, before you keep watching, answer one question with brutal honesty. Do you know exactly what you're losing right now while worrying about things you will never control? While you listen to these words, somewhere in the world, someone is living with a lightness you don't yet know. Not because that person got luckier, not because life was easier on them, but because they discovered an ancient secret, one so simple it seems obvious, and so rare that most people die without ever applying it. You are being robbed. Every single day. And the thief is you. Every time you tear yourself apart over the opinion of someone who will forget your name in a week. Every time you compare your real life to the edited life of a stranger online. Every time you spend mental energy trying to control what is, by nature, beyond your reach. You are stealing your own time, your peace, and your capacity to grow. We live in the era with the most freedom in human history, and paradoxically, we feel more trapped than ever. We were conditioned to believe we must please everyone, be perfect at everything, and chase goals we never even chose for ourselves. This is exhausting. It's a prison without visible bars. But there is a way out. And it was drawn more than 2,000 years ago in the streets of Athens and the halls of the Roman Empire by men who faced slavery, exile, and absolute power and still found peace. This philosophy is called Stoicism. Over the next few minutes, I will reveal 12 Stoic secrets that teach the true art of not caring, not as indifference, but as a deliberate act of power, a conscious choice of where you place your energy. Whoever masters this gains a serenity most people never experience. And here's the most interesting part. Whoever truly applies this never goes back to who they were before. If you're tired of living to please others, tired of worrying about what's outside your control, stay until the end. This could be the turning point of your life. Picture a man at the top of absolute power, capable of deciding the life and death of millions with a single word. And yet, every night, he locked himself in his room, not to celebrate, not to plan conquests, but to question himself. That man was Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome. What he wrote during those solitary nights became one of the most read texts in history. Meditations. And what he discovered was this: reflecting on yourself is more powerful than any army. First secret: daily reflection. It is the foundation of practical stoicism. It's the moment when you slow down, face your own mind, and begin to build real self-awareness. Most people live decades without a single night of genuine reflection. They wake up, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. It's like sailing a ship without a compass, going nowhere with complete certainty. The practice is simple, but it requires courage. Set aside 10 minutes in silence and ask yourself, where did I fail today? Where did I let emotion control my mind? In what moment did I act against my own values? How much time did I waste worrying about something I could never control? Marcus Aurelius did this every single day, even while ruling the largest empire in the world. You have 10 minutes today. Notice that he wasn't writing to be read by anyone but himself. There was no vanity in those pages, only raw truth. And perhaps that's exactly why Meditations has survived 2,000 years, because it wasn't written to impress. It was written to heal. The honesty he had with himself at night, alone in his room, is the same honesty most people today lack, choosing distraction over self-confrontation. Beyond the emperor's own writing, there is a deeper lesson hidden in his ritual. He never treated reflection as an occasional luxury reserved for calm days. He practiced it especially on his hardest days, when war, betrayal, or exhaustion tempted him to skip it entirely. That consistency, even in chaos, is what separates a habit from a mere intention. Most people only reflect when life forces them to. Marcus Aurelius reflected so that life would never have the power to force him into anything. If you're willing to start this journey now, comment a single word below. Evolution. When I see it, I'll know you're ready for what comes next. You're at a meeting, a party, any setting. Someone makes a sharp comment about you. Your chest tightens. Your mind races. Pause for a second before feeling that way next time. Second secret: detachment from others' opinions. That comment reveals more about the person who said it than about you. It's their insecurity, disguised as criticism. Epictetus understood this in the hardest way possible. He lived as a slave before becoming one of Rome's greatest philosophers. And he taught something that still echoes today. No one can hurt you without your permission. Power never lived in what people say about you. It always lived in how you choose to interpret it. And if you hand over control of your peace to the opinion of strangers, you will never be free, no matter how much success you accumulate. Think about the irony of this. Epictetus, a man who literally lost his physical freedom, found an inner freedom that many free men never achieve. He was chained, but his mind never was. This proves something essential. Your peace doesn't depend on external circumstances. It depends exclusively on where you decide to place your focus. The strongest chains often aren't the ones others place on you, they're the ones you forge yourself with your own mind. It's worth noting how radical this idea was for Epictetus's time. Roman society was obsessed with reputation, status, and public approval, much like ours is today with likes and followers. Yet he taught his students to separate what belongs to them, their judgments, their choices, their character, from what doesn't belong to them, other people's words, actions, and opinions. This single distinction, applied consistently, dismantles almost every anxious thought a person carries about how they are perceived. Third secret: self-awareness. Start observing your own patterns. Every time someone criticizes your work, do you get defensive? Every time a colleague succeeds, do you feel small? Every time you make a mistake, do you punish yourself for hours? Noticing this is the first step to disarming it. Because when you understand that your automatic thoughts are not you, you are the one observing those thoughts, you gain a freedom most people never feel. Self-awareness doesn't appear overnight. It's built through small, repeated pauses. It's the space between stimulus and reaction where all your freedom truly exists. The more you train that space, the more it expands, until the point where you stop reacting on impulse and start responding by choice. That difference, subtle at first, becomes the line separating a life lived by you from a life lived by circumstances. There's a practical exercise the Stoics used for this. At the end of each interaction that triggered a strong reaction, pause and ask what exactly you felt and why. Was it fear of judgment, wounded pride, a threat to your self-image? Naming the emotion precisely, instead of letting it stay vague and overwhelming, takes away much of its power. What you can name, you can examine. What you can examine, you can eventually master. Fourth secret: taking care of your physical health. Your body is the temple where your mind resides. Neglect one, and the other will never reach its full potential. When you move, your body releases substances that regulate mood. When you sleep well, your brain organizes memories and emotions. When you eat with purpose, you have the energy to think clearly, not just to survive the day. The Stoics never treated body and mind as two separate worlds. One sustains the other. Marcus Aurelius, even surrounded by physicians and imperial comfort, practiced physical exercise with almost military discipline because he knew a weak body produces an unstable mind. Seneca, in turn, recommended long walks specifically to organize thoughts that while seated became confused. Caring for the body, to the Stoics, was never vanity. It was strategy. It was the physical foundation upon which all mental clarity is built. There's also a less obvious dimension to this secret. Physical discomfort trains resilience. The Stoics deliberately exposed themselves to cold, hunger, and physical hardship, not out of masochism, but to prove to their own minds that comfort is not a requirement for functioning well. When you train your body to endure discomfort without panic, you simultaneously train your mind to face adversity without collapsing. The gym, in this sense, becomes a philosophy classroom disguised as exercise. Fifth secret: simplicity. The Stoics practiced what we would today call intelligent minimalism. It's not about poverty. It's about understanding an uncomfortable truth. The more things you accumulate, the more those things possess you back. Think of a backpack. You keep filling it with things that seem important, clothes you never wear, responsibilities that aren't even yours, relationships that only drain you. The backpack becomes so heavy you can barely walk. The Stoic question is simple and uncomfortable. Does this truly serve me? Does this bring me something real? If the answer is no, let it go. Seneca, one of the richest men in Rome, wrote entire letters teaching his students to live as if they could lose everything at any moment, not because wealth was a sin, but because dependence on it was a prison disguised as comfort. He deliberately practiced days of deprivation amid abundance, just to remind his body and mind that true security never lived in possessions, but in the ability to live well with little. There's a deeper reason this secret matters today more than ever. We live surrounded by advertising designed specifically to convince us that happiness lives in the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next acquisition. Seneca warned against exactly this trap 2,000 years before it had a name. The person who needs less is, paradoxically, the freest person in any room, because nothing external holds leverage over their peace of mind. Sixth secret: mental discipline. It's a muscle. It's not born strong, it's built, repetition after repetition. Picture your mind as a garden. If you don't tend to it, it soon becomes a wild forest where any toxic thought grows unchecked. But if you daily prune unproductive thoughts, your garden becomes something rare, a place of peace you can visit even amid external chaos. One of the oldest practices for this is meditation, sitting in silence and watching thoughts pass like clouds, without clinging to any of them, without judging any of them. The most common mistake is believing mental discipline means eliminating negative thoughts entirely. It doesn't mean that. It means developing the capacity to observe them without being swept away by them. A Stoic doesn't pretend the storm doesn't exist. He simply learns to build a shelter solid enough to weather it without drowning. That's the difference between suppressing and mastering. This distinction matters because most people who try to think positive end up exhausted, fighting a war against their own minds that they can never fully win. The Stoic approach is gentler and, paradoxically, more powerful. You don't need to silence every negative thought. You only need to stop believing that every thought deserves your full obedience. A thought is just a visitor. You decide who gets to stay for dinner. Seventh secret: clear goals. Without them, you're carried by the wind, without direction, mistaking movement for progress. Specific goals work like a lighthouse, not because they guarantee the outcome, but because they give direction to your energy. The Stoics, however, taught something deeper about goals. You must commit fully to the effort, while maintaining a certain detachment from the final outcome. This is because the outcome often doesn't depend entirely on you. It depends on external factors, timing, luck, and other people's decisions. What has always been and always will be under your absolute control is the quality of the effort you put into the path. This idea, sometimes called the reserve clause by later Stoic scholars, is one of the most liberating tools in the entire philosophy. It allows you to pursue ambitious goals with full intensity, while remaining emotionally protected from outcomes you can't fully guarantee. You stop tying your self-worth to results and start tying it to the integrity of your process. That single shift removes an enormous amount of unnecessary suffering from goal-driven living. Eighth secret: the power of saying no. Every yes you give against your will is a piece of resentment that accumulates. Saying no is an act of self-respect. You are too valuable to waste your finite time on whatever simply shows up along the way. Here's the crucial point in all of this. Most of your suffering never came from the world. It came from where you decided to place your attention. And until this moment, you were probably pointing it in the wrong direction. Saying no to the Stoics was never an act of rejection toward others. It was an act of loyalty to yourself. Every time you give up something that truly matters to please someone who might not even notice your effort, you are silently teaching the world to treat you as something negotiable. And the time lost in that process never comes back. It's the only currency you truly possess and cannot recover. There's also a strategic side to this secret that people often overlook. Every time you say yes out of guilt or fear of disappointing someone, you're not just losing time, you're training the people around you to expect that same compliance in the future. Boundaries, once respected consistently, rarely need to be defended loudly. People adjust to what you consistently allow. Saying no, clearly and calmly, is often the fastest way to earn the kind of respect that endless people-pleasing never buys you. Ninth secret: personal growth as a real purpose. It's not about accumulating titles or likes. It's about becoming, year after year, wiser, stronger, more resilient in the face of what life brings. The Stoics measured success in a completely different way than our era does. To them, a man who faced loss with dignity was more victorious than a wealthy man who fell apart at the first obstacle. True progress doesn't show up in visible trophies. It shows up in the quiet way you react to adversity when no one is watching, when there's no applause, just you and the choice you need to make. This kind of growth is invisible by nature, which is exactly why so few people pursue it consistently. There's no certificate for handling a difficult year with grace. There's no trending post for staying calm during a crisis that would have destroyed you 5 years earlier. But those internal victories compound quietly over time, the same way interest compounds in a bank account, until one day you notice you've become someone who can no longer be shaken by the things that used to break you completely. 10th secret: serenity in the face of adversity. It's directly connected to mental discipline. When your mind focuses exclusively on what you can control, external chaos simply loses its power to shake you, not because the problem disappeared, but because you stopped handing your peace over to something that was never in your hands to begin with. Marcus Aurelius ruled through wars, betrayals, and a plague that devastated the empire, and still maintained a serenity that impressed even his enemies. He didn't ignore the problems. He simply refused to add suffering on top of suffering already present. The pain of the situation was already enough. There was no need to multiply it with anxiety over what hadn't happened yet. This principle applies just as sharply to modern life as it did to ancient Rome. Most of what drains us today isn't the actual problem in front of us. It's the imagined future version of that problem, replayed endlessly in our minds. We suffer the crisis once in reality, and then 100 more times in anticipation and rumination. Learning to separate the real event from the mental replay of that event is, in many ways, the entire practice of Stoic serenity condensed into a single skill. 11th secret: self-sufficiency and self-companionship. You don't need to be surrounded by people to be happy. There's an enormous difference between loneliness and solitude. The first is emptiness. The second is a reunion with yourself. Learn to enjoy your own company because, in the end, it's the only one that will never abandon you. Many people fill every minute of silence with noise, with notifications, with superficial company, precisely because they fear what they might find when truly alone. But it's exactly in that silence that real strength reveals itself. Whoever learns to be at peace with themselves stops depending on constant validation from others to feel complete. This is perhaps one of the most counter-cultural secrets on this list, especially in a world engineered to keep you constantly connected and constantly comparing. Every notification is designed to pull your attention outward, away from the quiet work of understanding your own mind. The Stoics understood something we've largely forgotten. The relationship you have with yourself sets the ceiling for every other relationship in your life. If you can't sit comfortably with your own thoughts, you'll struggle to build anything solid with anyone else's. 12th secret: avoiding comparison. When you grow and become self-sufficient, you understand something liberating. You're on your own path. Unique. Non-transferable. Comparing your journey to someone else's is like comparing the paths of two rivers. Each one reaches the sea in its own way. Comparison is, perhaps, the most silent thief of everything we've discussed here. It robs you of your ability to celebrate your own progress, because there will always be someone faster, richer, more talented in some aspect. The Stoics understood this clearly. Your only true race is against who you were yesterday. Every ounce of energy spent measuring your life against someone else's ruler is energy stolen from your own evolution. Modern life has amplified this thief's reach exponentially. Where the ancients only compared themselves to their neighbors, we now compare ourselves to millions of curated, filtered lives displayed on a screen we carry in our pockets. This is, without exaggeration, one of the greatest psychological challenges of our era, and one the Stoics, in their wisdom, prepared an answer for 2,000 years before smartphones existed. Your path was never meant to look like anyone else's. The moment you accept that fully, comparison loses its grip entirely. Now you have the 12 secrets that emperors, slaves, and philosophers used to endure war, power, loss, and exile without losing their own peace. But here's the truth no one tells you. None of this is magic. No secret works simply because you heard it. It works when you apply it. In the next criticism you receive, in the next comparison you make, in the next moment you want to say yes when the right answer is no. The choice now is yours. Keep living reactively, handing your peace over to whatever crosses your path, or start steering your own life, one secret at a time. If this video made you think differently about where you've been spending your energy, leave that mark with a like. That's the signal that tells me I should keep bringing you this kind of content. If you want to build this mindset brick by brick, subscribe to the channel. Every week I bring a new pillar of a philosophy that has survived 2,000 years without losing relevance, because human nature, deep down, never changed. Keep these 12 secrets. Return to them when life tests your patience. And remember, you don't need to apply all of them at once. Choose one. Start today. Until next time.